Welcome in, everybody, to episode 22 of Black and Gold Weekly. We have a big show coming up for you as playoff hockey is in full swing, and the Boston Bruins have moved on to the second round of the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs, where they will take on the New York Islanders in a chance to win the East Division and move on to the semifinals of the league. So, as you can see, I am joined by a very special guest here in episode 22. He is back. I think your fourth time on the show now. It's
Third, I think.
Third time on the show. It's Mr. Danny Jaillet. Danny, thank you so much for being here. Really, really appreciate it.
As soon as the series ended on Sunday, I said, I got to get on John's show. I have a lot to say, so.
Yeah, for sure. This is going to be a really fun episode, guys. We have so much to talk about as far as the playoffs are concerned. Before we get into it, I do want to thank everyone at Black and Gold Productions, the entire BNG team. Mark Allred and everyone else there have done such a tremendous job supporting this show, and it would not be happening without all of those people at BNG Productions. So this show is in partnership with Black and Gold Productions. A big shout out to them. And I also want to mention the links down in the description of the video. We have 3 links there. The top one is for Boston Bruins apparel. The second one is for NHL apparel, whatever team you want. And the third one is for NCAA college apparel. They've got all different kinds of products. And as the playoffs go along, if you're looking to rep a team, Bruins or another one, that is a great place to check out. They got hats, shirts, hoodies, sweatpants, all sorts of accessories, pretty much anything that you could want team-related. And so if you're in the market for that, it would really be appreciated if you check out those links in the description. But for this show, we're kind of going to break it in half here. Obviously, the series with the Capitals is over. So for the first part of the show, we're going to talk about that series, kind of do a bit of a series review on that. And then for the second half of the show, we're going to look ahead to the New York Islanders and kind of preview the second round matchup here, as the Isles are actually coming off a very impressive series win, in my opinion, over the Pittsburgh Penguins, where I think they played really, really well. So it's going to be a fun show. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. And Danny, I guess we'll just start kind of simple. Just your overall impression of the Bruins against the Capitals in this round 1 series.
I was absolutely shocked that the Bruins were able to end this in 5. My Bruins fandom told me that the Bruins were going to win it in 7, but I didn't think it was going to be as one-sided as it was, especially after Game 1. I thought that the Capitals, we've seen this story so many times before. The Bruins play well against the Capitals. They either get ahead in a series or they look like they have all the momentum, and then the Capitals, just storm back and break the hearts of all Boston fans. So I am very happy that the Bruins were able to close the door on Washington, and I don't want to get too excited about this team to take a page out of your book, but I feel really good about where this team is headed.
Yeah, I'm with you on the surprise here. I was not expecting this to be a 5-game series. When I did my predictions, I said Bruins in 7. I thought it was going to be a very hard-fought, close, tight series all the way through. And it started out that way. I mean, the first 3 games all went to overtime. Bruins actually lost Game 1. It was their only loss of the series. They were able to steal Game number 2 in a game where I thought they got largely outplayed in Game 2, but they were able to score the late third period goal to tie it up, and then they were able to win it in overtime on the goal from Brad Marchand. And the series really seemed to turn at that point after the Bruins stole Game 2. Obviously, Game 3 was still very close. That was the double overtime game. The Caps were still in it at that point, but they losing Game 3, after that, the Capitals seemed to just mail it in. And I was really surprised by that because this is a Caps team that is older. They have a lot of veterans on the team. They have a lot of guys left from their 2018 Cup team still on the roster. And there's a lot of playoff experience there in Washington, and a coach with a lot of playoff experience in Peter Laviolette. And the Capitals just seemed to mail it in at the end of this series, and I was very surprised to see that. They just looked like, especially in games 4 and 5, like they didn't even want to be there,
Mhm.
and that's what ended this series so quickly, and that kind of caught me off guard. I was expecting a lot more from the Capitals in this series.
Throughout the series, I noticed through the first couple of periods, Washington would have a lot of time in the
Hmm.
Bruins zone and they would shoot and this and that and the other thing. And then by the third and sometimes overtime periods, they would start to get really tired. So throughout the series, I just kept telling myself, the Bruins have to weather the storm. And if they can weather the storm, of the Capitals, early onslaught in these early periods, then fatigue is going to set in for Washington. There were some points in the series where Washington looked very, very old, and they are. I
Yep.
think they're the oldest team in the league.
Yep.
But historically, it's been the Capitals are the faster team. They complete more passes. They can move the puck better. They're good on the forecheck and the back check. This was a series where the Capitals looked like they were just exhausted by game four.
Yeah, I agree. And the Caps, I believe, are the oldest team in the league based on average age. Obviously, Zdeno Chara kind of
Mhm.
boosts that, but they are a very older team for sure. I mean, you look at Ovechkin in his mid 30s. You have Oshie now in his mid 30s. You've got Backstrom 30 plus. You've got obviously Chara on the back end. You've got Carlson who's over 30 now. This is an older team, and I think it did kind of show because the Bruins were seemed to get better as the games went along and as the series went along. Like the Bruins were really good in third periods in this series, and obviously in overtimes as well. They were able to pick up 2 wins in OT. They got better as the game went along, and as the series went along as well, as we got games 3, 4, 5, the Bruins seemed to get better and better, whereas the Capitals completely went the other way. So I do think that fatigue probably did play a role in that, and the Caps just they did not have the energy. They didn't have the kind of skating and just boost and physicality. Early in the series, they did. It was very physical, but it kind of waned out as the series went along. And like everything for the Caps kind of waned out as the series went along. And Boston took complete advantage of it.
And to me, this was the mark of a veteran team on the Bruins' part. I don't know
Hmm.
if they planned it this way, but to me, it looked like okay, we're not going to do anything crazy in the first couple of periods. We're going to save our energy for the back end when Washington is going to start surging because it is going to happen, and that's when we're really going to turn it on and try to seal the deal, offensively.
Hmm. Yeah. So think there's a lot of things that the Bruins did very well in this series. There's some things that stood out to me on the negative side from the Capitals' perspective. I just kind of want to touch on all of those, and then I'm going to hand it over to you and see if you kind of saw the same things. Negatives, as far as the Capitals go, I don't think their top players were very good. And I can pull out all kinds of statistics here to kind of show that. But when you look at the Caps in this series, obviously Ovechkin led the team with 4 points, but he was also a -2. Oshie also had 4 points, but also a -2. John Carlson only had 2 points in the series. Tom Wilson only had 2 points in the series, and they both came in game number one, did absolutely nothing after that. Anthony Mantha only had 2 points in the series. Nicholas Backstrom only had 1 point in the series. Evgeny Kuznetsov did not have a point in the series. The best Washington Capitals in this series were Garnet Hathaway and Nick Dowd. Those were the Caps' two best players. And when your fourth line is your best line, and when your two best players in a playoff series are fourth line guys who honestly were tied for the team leading goals with two, but when you have to rely on those guys to be your best players, you're not going to go very far. And for the Capitals, I really think that their top players were clearly not good enough in this series.
Yeah, and it was kind of startling to watch because it was
Hmm.
almost like watching the Bruins of years past. The bottom lines would do really well, but the top lines fizzled out. And one thing I really noticed is that Washington did not make any adjustments on the power play.
Mm-hmm.
especially on Friday. They mentioned it even in the telecast. The Bruins knew where the shots were coming from. They were either coming from the top of the Bruins zone, or they were coming from the side. So
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Carlo, for instance, was able to come over and slide and block a shot. There wasn't any change, to the style of the power play, and that kind of lack of adjustment is something that was evident throughout the entire series. The Capitals were going to play the way they were going to play, and they didn't end up making adjustments.
Yeah, for sure. And that's that. I mean, I don't know if that's just stubbornness on the coach's part or what the deal was there. If the Capitals were trying to force their style of play into the series, but it clearly wasn't working by like game 3, and certainly not in game 4. And they really didn't change anything. They didn't try anything new. They didn't really make any sort of adjustment, and that I think kind of fed into the mailing it in kind of feeling at the end of this series had, where it was like, what is this team doing? They're trying the same things over and over. They're failing every time, and they're not changing anything. They're not trying anything new. And that must have been really frustrating for Caps fans to watch, as they just couldn't get anything going in games number 4 or number 5.
They looked exhausted, and
Yeah.
they looked like they almost didn't want to be there by like game, what was it, game 5 or game
Ga-
4
Game
even.
4 was the really bad one.
And it was kind of startling to watch again, because the Capitals are a team that historically plays with a lot of energy. They, complete crisp passes, they move fast, they skate well, and there was none of that in this series. It looked like they were just content, going through the motions, and it was like they waved a white flag. It was kind of pathetic, because
Yep.
I think, even if you as a team know that, the odds are against you or you have no shot, you still have to play hard. And they certainly did not do that in the last couple of games of the series. And it was kind of a sad display of hockey towards the end on the part of Washington.
Yeah, I completely agree, and they totally gave up on that series. But I mean, that's good for the Bruins, I guess,
Yeah.
because they were able to finish it off early here. Boston, there's so much that I liked about the Bruins in this series. Obviously, they had a lot of momentum going into this series. They had been playing really, really well post trade deadline in the regular season. They were really hot going into the playoffs, and that's why I picked the Bruins to win this series, is because I thought that they would be able to carry that momentum over, and they were playing better heading into the postseason, and they certainly did. And while obviously they lost game 1 in overtime and it didn't get off to the best start, they showed absolutely no signs of, giving up, or no signs of, being in trouble. They were able to come back and steal game 2. And I really think that when they stole game 2 in Washington, that was kind of the turning point of this series, where Boston from that point on was like, we got this. We're going to win this series. We're going to take it to them. And they didn't lose a game. They didn't lose another game after. And that was absolutely awesome to watch as a Bruins fan. But there were so many guys that played well, so many things that I liked about what the Bruins did in this series. Um, I don't even know exactly where we want to start, but we might as well start in goal and work our way out. So Tuukka Rask, little shaky in game 1. One of the goals, the Orlov one that kind of went through like 5 guys and ended up
Mhm.
just squeaking through the 5 hole. That was the one that I watched and was like, Tuukka, you got to be in position to just stop
Yep.
that. Even if you can't see it, that should be a positional save. That was really the only goal, though, that I was like, oh, God, Tuukka. But the rest of that series, he was phenomenal. And he got a lot better, I think, as he got better and better as the series went along. And that is a really good sign for the Bruins. Because when Tuukka's on his game, we know how good of a goaltender he can be. The question with him is, him being on his game at a top level on a consistent basis. If he can play like he did in this series all playoffs long, the Bruins are going to be fine in net.
Yeah, and the one thing that the Washington Capitals did do really well was screen Tuca. And
Yeah.
there were some absolutely crazy bounces that were impossible to save that, he let through. And after game one, I was like, oh no, here we go again, kind of like you. But he did a nice job of, seeing through the screens, staying calm in net. There were a lot of times where the Capitals were in the Bruins zone and just were peppering him shot after shot, and he
Yep.
just stayed calm and did what he needed to do. And um, it was kind of a contrast of the goalie styles in this series, at least for a little bit. For instance, Craig Anderson would go out of his net a lot to make a
Yep.
save, and that kind of left him vulnerable to shots closer to the net and things like that. Tuukka just stayed kind of sturdy and firm. He didn't move much, and he just seemed like he was really locked in and focused throughout the rest of the series. Like I said, game one I thought was a little shaky, but given that the Capitals were getting that traffic in front of the net, he played very well throughout the rest of it. And like you said, if he's on his game like he was in this series, then I feel very confident about the Bruins' ability to go deep.
Yeah. It's interesting. Tuca was very, very calm and collected, and didn't waste any movement in net. And there were times where the Capitals were completely controlling the play. They were spending a lot of time in the Boston zone. They were throwing a lot of pucks at the net. But Tuca was just, it's like it didn't even phase him, and he was just there making save after save after save. And he made some huge stops for the Bruins. And you talk about Anderson down at the other end. I think he obviously didn't play a lot this year. I think he only got into like 4 games in the regular
Yeah.
season, so he was very cold coming into this series after Vanacek got injured. He didn't play bad, but I think
No.
there were times where you're like, okay, well, he looks like a goaltender that probably is a number 3 goaltender. And then Samsonov came into the series, and the brutal gaff in Game 3 that led to the
Yeah.
Craig Smith winner. It's He played really well. Samsonov played really well in this series for the most part, but just a mistake here or there just kind of cost the Cap. Ilya Samsonov had a really, really solid series, I think, for the most
Yeah.
part. He made some absolutely huge saves for the Capitals throughout this series, but the team did not really play that well in front of them, and they did not support their goaltender the way that they needed to, and
No.
not even close to the way that the Bruins were able to support Tuukka Rask.
No, and it seemed like Samsonov was standing on his head at times,
Yep.
and that's no way for any team to win. And yes, Samsonov wasn't the starting goaltender initially in this series, but even still, I thought he played really well and at least gave them a chance to win, minus his gaff. But
Hmm.
no, I thought he played the best out of the Washington goaltenders in this entire series, truthfully.
Yeah, for sure. He's a good young goaltender and has a very bright future ahead of him. As far as Tuca goes, obviously, like almost every goal against him was a deflection or a screen shot, or there wasn't there wasn't a lot of clean shots beating Tuukka Rask in this series, and that's I think a really good sign for the Bruins going forward. That he's making all the stops that he should make, and there's not much that goaltenders can do on deflections and stuff. I mean that's kind of just sometimes it hits you, sometimes it doesn't. There's really no time to react, and those were the goals that the Capitals were getting. But as far as like the straight up shots, Tuukka was stopping pretty much everything.
Yeah, Tuca made them work, and the Bruins defense made the Capitals work. There were, like you said, no clean goals. I thought there was a lot of good defensive traffic in front of Tuca, and I thought that he did a really nice job of tracking the puck. There was many times where bodies were in front of the net, and it was very hard to see where the puck was going, and Tuca was able to somehow figure it out and make the save. He stayed square, and it seemed like he always had a general idea of where the puck was. He was very, like you said, quick in his movements when he had to make them, and he didn't try to make a hero save or a flashy save. He just traced the puck and followed it where it went, and he was really, I thought, really calm and solid in this entire series.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's very good news for the Bruins. Moving out to the defense, the Bruins, I think, as a whole, played very well defensively. Very solid series as far as Team D goes. But one player that I really want to talk about is Charlie McAvoy, because this is a guy that is blossoming into a Norris Trophy level defenseman before our eyes. Clearly the Bruins number one, I mean, has been all year, but the way that he played in this series and just how good he is, I don't think he gets nearly enough attention nationally the way that some other young defensemen do. McAvoy is right there. He is one of the best young D-men in the NHL. He's one of the best D-men as a whole in the NHL at this point. And he had 5 assists, didn't score a goal, but had 5 assists in the 5 games, was a +4, and played over 27 minutes on average. 27:15 was his average time on ice for this series. Obviously, the overtimes and the double overtime game really add to that, but McAvoy was unbelievable in this series against Washington, and he took a beating too physically. The Capitals' forecheck was all over him. They drove him through the glass as much as they could. They landed a lot of big hits against him, but it didn't phase him at all. And I just thought he had an incredible series for the Bruins.
It seemed like last year we were talking about Charlie McAvoy. Is he going to be able to blossom into that defenseman? He looked sluggish at times in the playoffs last year, and we were waiting for him to take that next step. He took it in this series against Washington. I thought he played really well. He was very quick with his stick. He was able to withstand the physicality of Washington, and I think you're absolutely right. I think he does not get enough recognition nationally, and I also think some fans, like to point out Don Sweeney's faults and maybe what he's done wrong and his bad history of drafting.
Mm-hmm.
He nailed it on the head with McAvoy, and I'm really excited to see what he does throughout the rest of the series. He was a player where we talked, I think it was in December, about who is going to step up for the Bruins this season, and McAvoy has done that, and he's continued that high level of play throughout the series, and hopefully when we get to New York and see what he can do there.
Yeah, 100%. This was a coming out party for Charlie McAvoy, and he is a stud on the back end, and I think he will have some Norris Trophy nominations in his future, and maybe even a Norris Trophy win or two in his future, as he continues to get better and better for the Boston Bruins. And this year was a big stepping stone for him, as he really did kind of leap from that. Really good young defenseman into a guy that looks like he could be one of the best defensemen in the entire NHL. And he took that next step into elite category, and he's really over the course of this season, but now he's carrying it into the playoffs. And if he plays this well all postseason long, the Bruins have a really good shot to go deep if he's playing at this level, both offensively and defensively, because that's the other thing about McAvoy, is that he is such a good two-way player. We see so many defensemen that might be a shutdown defenseman, but they don't bring a lot to the table offensively, or you see those offensive guys who rack up tons of points, but then they get back into their own end and they're a bit of a liability, and they're often minus players. And McAvoy has it at both ends of the ice, and he's just a great all-around defenseman. And that, I think, is one of the best things about him, is that you don't have to worry about him at either end of the ice. He is going to bring it all over, plays a full 200-foot game.
And I credit that too to him playing in Hockey East at Boston University. The Hockey East is very offensive minded, in my opinion, and he was that same two-way player at Boston University because he had to be. Sure, he had great teammates, but with how competitive Hockey East was,
Mm-hmm.
he needed to step up his game every single night, and that's translated well to the NHL. And it's really made him find his niche here in the professional ranks.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always good to see somebody who played college hockey, local college hockey here in New England, uh, really succeeding and playing at an extremely high level in the NHL. And obviously, there's a lot of guys that went to Hockey East schools that end up having great NHL careers. But McAvoy, I think, has a chance to be, you know, not just one of the best players coming out of college, but one of the best players in the league to come out of a Hockey East school, and I think he has a chance to have a real high end career as a top level defenseman in the NHL, and that is awesome to see, and just goes to show that college hockey is preparing players better and better. For the NHL and to move on to the pro ranks. And that's something that over the last 15 plus years, we've seen a lot more college players not only going to the NHL, but having very, very good careers in the NHL rather than coming from junior.
Absolutely, and I think it has to do with the depth in recruiting
Mm-hmm.
for college hockey. Now there's more emphasis on scouting your backyard, scouting New England, or if you're in Minnesota, scouting, you know, the Minnesotas and the Dakotas and things like that. Coaches and coaching staffs and recruiters are starting to realize, well, not starting to, but over the last 15 years, they've realized that some of these great athletes that they may have been looking for overseas are right here in their home state.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been really fun to see it kind of grow and see the game kind of grow as well. Sure, college hockey was big in the Northeast and the Dakotas and Minnesota and all that, but now the success of players like Charlie McAvoy, Johnny Gaudreau, Matt Grzelcyk, for instance, it's
Mm-hmm.
bringing attention to the college hockey game throughout the country.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely, and that is great to see. Another defenseman I kind of want to touch on quickly because I thought he played very, very well in this series and didn't play game one, but came in after Jeremy Lauzon went out, and that is Connor Clifton. And I know Connor Clifton's a guy that a lot of people have mixed feelings about, and his game can get, kind of what's the word? Kind of wild at times where he's not always in great position. Sometimes he's running around a little too much. But Connor Clifton had a phenomenal first round series against the Washington Capitals. He came in, played 4 out of the 5 games, was a +3, didn't have any points, but I thought he played very, very well defensively. Really did a good job of coming into the lineup in a depth role to fill in on that bottom pair. And I thought Cliffy had an awesome series and deserves a lot of credit for his ability to come in and play really, really well off the bench.
Yeah, and you talk about that wild play style over the course of the season. It looked like in this series, he said to himself, okay, take a deep breath and
Mm-hmm.
just do your job, like the Patriots
Yep.
say throughout the course of the season. And that's exactly what he did. He didn't try to do too much. He just stayed square defensively and he did his job very well. And when you can have that additional depth, that gives you confidence, I imagine, as a coach to put him out there, especially as the playoffs go further and you start getting into some of these overtime games or game sevens or hard fought battles. Having a guy like Clifton that can come in, know his role, and do a really good job at it will
Mm-hmm.
only help the Bruins moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, that's the kind of players that you need in your depth, and if you're ever going to go deep into the playoffs, you're going to have to rely on some depth guys at times. And there are going to be injuries throughout, playoff series, and especially a deep playoff run. And to have a guy like Clifton who can come in after sitting game one and just step into the lineup and play that well, that's a really good sign for the Bruins going forward, without a doubt. So moving on to the forward group now, I mean, I have really no complaints. I think that everybody, for the most part, played pretty well, did their jobs. Obviously, I think the top line really stood out just because of their production. Brad Marchand had 3 goals in the series. David Pastrnak had 6 points, 2 goals, 4 assists. Patrice Bergeron had 3 goals and an assist in the series. That top line I thought was absolutely phenomenal for the Bruins and was kind of a driving force behind them winning this series.
Yeah, and historically we've talked about, or it seems like we've talked about way too much how the top line has disappeared in the playoffs. But
Mm-hmm.
this series, they really kind of took charge and they really played like the top line that we know, and it was great to see
Yep.
because the Bruins can get a lot out of their depth players or their fourth line, but it's the top line that really kind of settles things down and makes things go. They're like the point guard of, the Bruins. They direct traffic, they settle things down, they kind of, establish the game plan early, and they were able to get the job done. I was a little bit worried about Pastrnak early in the series. He was missing some open nets, and it
Mm-hmm.
looked like he was pressing a little bit, but he was able to come through and really make an impact to help Boston close the door.
Absolutely. And I think the second line played well as well. I mean, Taylor Hall has a couple goals already, and they were huge goals that the Bruins really, really need. I think both of his goals tied the game up at the time and were able to get the Bruins back into things. And those were massive. Craig Smith obviously had the double overtime winner in game number 3. Krejci was a little quiet this series, but he did pick up a couple assists and was +2. So I think the second line played well. Some depth guys that had really good series. Nick Ritchie, I think, was awesome. 3 points, including a power play goal. He was +1. I think he really brought it this series. Didn't get a ton of ice time, but made the most of the ice time that he did
Hmm.
get. And Jake DeBrusk, man,
Yep.
after such a brutal regular season for Jake DeBrusk, for him to have 2 goals in the first playoff series right out of the gate like this, and a couple of big goals too. It was just awesome to see Jake get on the score sheet the way that he did in this series.
On your last show, we talked about we'll see if Taylor Hall will get an extension based on his play. I
Mm-hmm.
think we can answer based on his play, he deserves an extension. Um, Craig Smith, he's another guy who I thought has fit really well into what the Bruins are trying to do. He shoots pucks, he gets pucks on net, he drives to the net, and he really made himself known in this series. I was
Mm-hmm.
very happy for Jake DeBrusk because it seems like over the past couple shows we've talked about which Jake DeBrusk are we going to see? Is he going to show up? Is he going to be a factor? And this series he was. It looked like he just kind of relaxed a little bit. He knew what he had to do, and he made the most of the opportunities he was given. And this was a crucial series, I think, for him because I feel like Bruce Cassidy was kind of putting out his feelers to see what DeBrusk could do and whether he deserved more ice time. And I think he answered that question yes. And if he can keep it going and bring additional depth scoring to the Bruins, then that certainly bodes well for them down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just there's so much to like about the Bruins in the way that they played in this series, from up and down the lineup. Their top guys, their depth guys, their defense, the goaltending. It was just there was a lot to like here as a Bruins fan, and that's why they were able to pull this series out in 5 games in a relatively short series here against the Capitals, and they got the job done in this one. So Boston defeats the Washington Capitals in round number 1 of the 2021 playoffs, and they will be moving on to into the second round to play the New York Islanders, and that's going to be the second part of our show here. We're going to kind of look ahead and preview the Isles series coming up here. This is going to be a really interesting one. I think it's going to be a fun series. I think that it's going to be an exciting series. It's going to be good hockey to watch. The Islanders coming off a 6-game series win, knocking out the top seed Pittsburgh Penguins, and they were able to do it on home ice and finish it off in game number 6 with a big win. And New York, while they weren't playing all that well heading into the playoffs, really turned it on in this series. And the knock against the Islanders generally is that they can't score, that they have no offense. Well, that was not the case against the Pittsburgh Penguins. They were able to put the puck in the net. They've got a lot of guys playing well. Anthony Beauvillier and J.G. Pageau both had 7 points in the series. Brock Nelson and Josh Bailey had 6. They had a bunch of other guys with 4, 3, and 2. This Islanders team is not to be taken lightly by the Boston Bruins because they are going to be able to put up a big-time fight here in round number 2.
And when you look down the score sheet for the Islanders, like you said, there is a ton of balance.
Yep.
You know, Beauvillier had 7 points, J.G. Pageau 7, like you said, Josh Bailey 6, and then you keep going down the list. The Islanders aren't just good on one line or have a group of players who can produce. A lot of them can produce, and that's certainly going to be a challenge to Boston because when you look at the Washington series, there was a group of players who produced, and then the rest seemed to struggle.
Yep.
I don't think that's going to be the case with New York at all. They are going to have players who shoot pucks at the net and who are able to control the pace of play if the Bruins aren't careful. So I think Tuukka Rask better be ready, and the Bruins defense better be ready for another dogfight because this is not going to be an easy series.
Yeah, definitely not. And, the Islanders are obviously known for their kind of tight-checking defensive style, the almost trap kind of play that they play at times under Barry Trotz. Very, very defensive-minded team. But, watching, and I watched almost all of the games in the Pittsburgh Islanders series, and they weren't. It wasn't that kind of series. It wasn't the slowed down, just trap up the neutral zone and play, boring hockey kind of series. It was a fast-paced, up and down, lots of shots, lots of goals series. It was a high-scoring series, and the Islanders show that they're able to play that way when they need to. And they played very, very exciting hockey against Pittsburgh, and I think that it's going to be a very exciting series against the Bruins. And the Islanders are also a very physical team, much like the Washington Capitals were. So, there was all this talk about how physical the Bruins and Caps were going to be and how much the teams disliked each other. Well, you're not going to get any less physical of a series with the New York Islanders. I mean, they've got guys throughout their lineup that love to throw the body around. They have a very tough fourth line with Matt Martin, Casey Cizikas, and Cal Clutterbuck. Mayfield on the back end is physical. Even Pelech is very physical on the back end. And they got guys higher in their lineup like J.G. Pageau that aren't afraid to throw the body around either. So I'm expecting this to be another very tough physical series against New York.
Yeah, and when you look at what the Islanders did when they met the Bruins this season, they played Boston hard.
Mm-hmm.
There were no easy games against the Islanders this season, and I expect the same for this series. I'm not going to make any predictions yet because I'm not sure how things are going to go, but I think it's going to be a series where the Bruins are going to have to take care of the puck in their own zone and limit the time in the penalty box and just continue to play solid defense. I hate to go back to Washington, but I was really impressed mostly defensively with what the Bruins were able to do. And I feel like they need to bring that same sort of effort, clog up the lanes, make the Islanders take outside shots, protect Tuukka Rask, because there's a lot of players on this New York Islanders team who can put the puck in the net, like you said. So I expect this to be a high-scoring series, and I also expect this to be a battle of the goaltenders in the sense that who can get that key save that will stop the momentum for either side.
Yeah, and speaking of goaltenders, we talked a lot about Tuukka Rask already throughout this show, but Ilya Sorokin has taken over in net for the New York Islanders. They tried to play Varlamov, and he lost both games that he played. They went back to Sorokin, and he has not lost yet in these playoffs. He is 4-0. I'm going to pull up the stats here. Incredible numbers from Sorokin in this series. He is 4 4-0 in the playoffs in the game that he has played. Varlamov lost the 2 games that the Islanders lost against the Penguins with a .943 save percentage and a 1.95 goals against average, while Tuukka Rask is 4-1 with a .941 save percentage and a 1.81 goals against average. So both starting goaltenders here obviously playing extremely well heading into this series. But the teams have shown that they can score as well. And I think it is probably going to come down to which goaltender is able to play better and win this series. And they're both playing excellent hockey right now. So that is going to be quite a battle to watch between Sorokin and Rask.
And I think it's going to come down to who can be the most efficient on the power play. For both teams, they're going to need to take advantage of their power play chances, because I don't see, I can see high-scoring games, but these teams are going to need to fight for the goals that they score. So when Boston has a man advantage or when New York has a man advantage, they need to make sure that they don't waste their time on the ice, because you're not going to get too many chances, A, with these goaltenders in net, and B, with the type of physical style that these teams are playing.
Yeah, and something that I do think kind of helped out the Islanders, obviously, in their series against Pittsburgh is that Tristan Jarry played very poorly for the Pittsburgh Penguins, particularly like later in that series. Obviously, just gave the game away in Game 5 with the tape-to-tape pass right to Josh Bailey for the OT winner. And then in Game number 6, in the final game, Jarry was brutal. Tuukka Rask is going to be a lot better than Tristan Jarry was in round number 1. So I'm kind of interested to see is how many goals can the Islanders score against a goaltender that is actually playing well, and are they able to generate the same amount of offense against Rask that they were able to against the Penguins with Jarry playing as bad as he did.
I'm interested to see if Taylor Hall can continue to provide that same impact for this upcoming series. I mean, we talk about depth scoring all the time, and Hall, when he was on the ice, he flew with the puck. He skated fast, and he played hard each shift. And you talk about depth. Depth is going to be key for both teams. So I guess one of my big keys is, can the depth players get it done for either side? Because we know what the top guys, J.G. Pedro, Brad Marchand, those types of guys can do. What can the depth players do for each side?
Yeah, and what's interesting for the Islanders, and this may or I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, but Matt Barzal did not have a very good series against Pittsburgh. Now, obviously you want your best player to be playing well. Barzal did not have a great series, but at the same time, the Islanders were able to win without Barzal playing his best hockey. I think he only had 3 points in the series, and really, I thought, he was one of those guys that could have been better for New York, but they were still able to win without their best player playing at his best. And that, I think, is a sign for the Islanders that the depth around them is going to be able to kind of step up. And it's going to, like you said, depth is going to play a big, big role in this series. And it's going to be interesting to see, can those other guys step up in the way that they did in round number 1?
Matt Barzal, you very rarely see him have, a couple bad games in a row or games where he's quiet. So I expect him to be a factor in this series, and that's going to be interesting to see how the Bruins handle it, because when he gets going, he is a very potent player. And will the Bruins be able to neutralize him enough, just like not like the Penguins did, but like he was kind of quiet in the Penguins series? Can the Bruins make him as quiet, hopefully? Because New York already has a ton of weapons, and if Barzal gets going, this will be a much tougher series for Boston.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really kind of the second and third lines that drove the Islanders in that Penguins series. It wasn't their top line. Eberle had 3 points. He had a couple goals, but he was -2. Barzal only had 3 assists and was -2. And Komarov, who's playing up on that top line, which, again, I I don't get that. He is. You don't have anybody better that you could put on the top line left wing with Anders Lee out than Leo freaking Komarov, but that's a story for another day, I guess. He only had 1 point in the series and was -1. That top line for the Islanders wasn't really their top line in that Penguins series, but it was the Nelson, Beauvillier, and Bailey line that kind of led the way. It was the third line with Pajot and Palmieri that kind of pushed for New York. And if they're able to get that kind of, again, like you said earlier, that they're a very balanced team. They're not going to come in and have one standout line or one line that they have to completely rely on. They are very balanced from top to bottom. And if one line doesn't have a great series, they have other guys that can step in and really pick up the slack there because they are so deep. And that's going to be interesting to watch throughout this series is, does the Barzal line get going, or are they still relying on Nelson and Pajot's line to kind of lead the way? And if that Barzal line does get going, that is going to be another challenge for the Bruins to contend with.
This isn't going to be an easy series no matter what. And so the Bruins are just going to have to be ready, weather the storm like they did with Washington, and see if they can continue to, make smart plays and not make mistakes, particularly in their own zone.
Yep.
And it's going to be interesting to see who steps up and how much they step up, because this isn't the type of series where one player is going to step up in one game and then it's going to be all over. All of these players, whether it be for New York or Boston, someone is going to need to step up in order to change the momentum of this series.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. And that kind of going to bring me into one last thing here. Looking at this or previewing this series, one for each team. Just give me like one key. If the Islanders are going to win this series, what's the key for the New York Islanders? If the Bruins are going to win this series, what's the key for the Boston Bruins? Just like one thing for each side here heading into this one.
Key for the Islanders, I would say, to get traffic in front of Tuukka Rask. Rask, like we alluded to earlier, did well with the traffic that Washington put in front of the net. He has historically been kind of iffy with traffic, so just get traffic in front of the net and try to fire as many shots as you can at Tuukka Rask and make him make those crazy saves that we didn't see him make against Washington. And then for Boston, it's got to be for me just to stay out of the box. They're going to need to play a clean game. They're going to need to avoid after whistle scrums. And look, I get it. It's playoff hockey. I'm not asking them to knit and hold hands, but I think that they're going to need to play a clean game and just take care of the puck in their own zone and just try to limit the amount of times New York gets chances in their own end.
Yeah, awesome. So for me, for the Islanders, I think a key for them to win this series is that top line that did not have a great series against Pittsburgh is going to have to, if they're going to beat the Boston Bruins. That Barzal line has got to get going. Obviously, the Nelson and Bailey lines are rolling. The fourth line, I mean, it's one of the most consistent fourth lines in the NHL, one of the most physical fourth lines in the NHL. You know what you're going to get from them on a nightly basis. That top line for the Islanders has to get going if they're going to win this series. Otherwise, I don't think they have enough to be able to beat Boston. And for the Bruins, I think it's going to be special teams play. The Islanders' power play is not very good, and we saw that in the Penguins series. It hasn't been good all season. The Islanders' power play is not very good. If the Bruins can score on their power play chances and then stop the Islanders' power play chances, they are definitely going to win this series. And I think there's going to be a lot of special teams play in this series because it's going to be very physical. I think it's going to be downright nasty at points. I mean, the Islanders in Penguins series was very nasty, really, for the first 4 games. That died down a lot in games 5 and 6 because obviously you don't want to cost your team at that point. But early in that series, that was a very physical, nasty series. And Pittsburgh isn't really that kind of team. Boston and the Islanders both are. So I think this is going to be a very, very physical, nasty series from the get-go. And you're going to have to be able to play well on special teams. And I think that is going to be a key for the Bruins to capitalize on their power play opportunities, and then stop the Islanders' power play, because they are certainly capable of winning the special teams battle in this series, because they have better special teams all around than the New York Islanders. And if they can take advantage of that, then I think they will be moving on and winning the East and going to the Final Four in the NHL this year. So those are my two key for each team there. And we got to do it. We're previewing this series. We got to do it. Prediction. How do you think that this one goes? I know that you said earlier that you don't really have one yet, so I'll give you some time to think here. I'm gonna say Bruins in 6. I think it's gonna be a hard-fought series. I think it's gonna be a tough series, but I think the Bruins get it done. They're a very hot team right now. I'm gonna say Bruins in 6.
I'm going to say Bruins in 7 because there's going to be that one game where the Bruins should have won and then they just let it slip away because they're usually good for a couple of those.
Yep.
So I'll say Bruins in 7, but it's not going to be easy. I'm hoping my last prediction was Bruins in 7 against Washington, so I'm hoping it's Bruins in 5 again.
5 again.
Think the Islanders steal another game. I mean 3 games and make it 7, a hard-fought series.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be a long, hard-fought series for sure, but we both have the Bruins coming out of it. I think they have as good a chance as anybody, and they're playing really good hockey right now. So that is going to bring us now to the end of episode 22. We look back at the Capitals series. We've looked ahead to the Islanders series. Playoff hockey is in full swing, and it has been absolutely awesome this year. Incredible playoffs so far. And we're still just finishing up round 1, so we have a ways to go as well, which is great for all of us hockey fans. Danny, thank you so much for joining the show this week. It was great to have you, and it's always fun to talk Boston Bruins hockey.
Thank you for having me. Hopefully we'll be able to do this again soon.
Yeah, absolutely, man, for sure. And thank you guys all so much for watching. Obviously, if there wasn't an audience, media and shows like this would not take place. So thank you to everybody for tuning in. Big thank you again to Mark Allred and the entire team at Black and Gold Productions. This show is in partnership with B&G Productions and would not be happening without them. Awesome website where our entire team of writers is putting out articles each and every day covering the Bruins on blackandgoldhockey.com. Also a very awesome podcast network, a bunch of different shows, all part of the B&G Productions team as well. You can find that on the website, blackandgoldhockey.com as well. And one final reminder to check out the links in the description. We have Boston Bruins gear, NHL gear, NCAA hockey gear. All 3 links are down in the description. If you want to check those out or in the market for any of those, it would be greatly, greatly appreciated. That is going to bring us to the end now of episode 22. We'll be back next Friday for episode number 23. And the Bruins and Islanders series will be underway at that point. So we will see how it is going by the time we get to next week's show. But thank you guys again so much for watching. That's going to do it for this one. Talk to you next week. Appreciate it.